Okay, so let's talk about some of the new features in Photoshop 2018, particularly in relationship to brushes. So first of all, we have a new feature called smoothing. Now let me take this off. I'm going to take it down to 0 and let's go ahead and play with this one. Hit the F key to go to full screen mode. Let's get in a little closer. And I'm going to go ahead and just make my foreground and background color black and white. Hit the D key on the keyboard for default. And if I start to draw, have my pressure sensitivity turned on, and if I press down harder, it becomes darker. So I'm using my Wacom pen for this, okay? If you're not using your Wacom pen, for those of you who are going to be doing the assignment and have no Wacom pen, you just simply have to come up here and change the opacity manually, okay? So when you export out your brushes for me to grade, just make your changes manually between opacity and flow, and also the third icon from the left, your menu where you're making adjustments to your shape dynamics and scattering and so forth, and then you can save your brushes and then export them out. Okay, so just look at the video on exporting your brushes through Photoshop. Alright, now let's get back to what I want to talk about here. Smoothing. If we turn smoothing on, let's go to like 100%. Watch what happens. You see that little purplish line is following? What it's doing is it's creating a circular or curved pattern. So if I try to do angles, it's going to be very difficult to do because it's going to take those angles and smooth out, make a curve based on where the location begins and where you're ending. Let's go ahead and hit delete key and kind of take this out. If I turn the smoothing down, let's say something like 50% or 40%, I can get some angles in there, but it's still smoothing out my curve based on this location, okay? Let's come over here and go down to 0, and now I can create definitive curved shapes. Alright, so be aware that smoothing is on. We can alter our basically the shape from a straight line or hard angles to more of a smoother curvature result. Now let's take a look at a new way to organize our brushes. So we're in our brush panel, or in our brush tool I should say. Let's go to our brush panel. Up here in the options bar, the second tool on the left hand side, let's go ahead and click it. And you notice that there's going to be some changes in 2018. And you're going to notice that things are kind of organized a little bit differently. Right down here you have a panel that says General Brushes. You notice that if I click that panel, it cascades up. So there's General Brushes there with all the tools inside. I'm going to do the same thing for Special Effects brushes. And this is a folder that I created myself. I'm going to custom create a folder for you so that you can see how it's done. Right down here are some custom brushes that I created personally. And what if I want to organize those brushes in my own little folder? I'm going to go right up here under this little gear symbol, drop it down, and I'm going to create what's called a group, so a new brush group. So I'm going to call this group Steve's Faves. Okay, and target OK. You notice there it is. Okay, nothing's inside, just a folder. Now, if I want to select certain brushes that I consider my favorite, here's one where I take one of the chalk brushes and I apply scattering to it. So I'm going to target this, click and hold, and drag it and place it inside of Steve's Faves. It removes it from up here and puts it inside the folder. So up at the top are just my general brushes, just laid out in and basically no particular order. It's fairly disorganized. It's not organized in the least. So I'm going to go over here and start organizing things. So in fact, why don't I make another folder? I'm going to call it scatter brushes, since I'm seeing a number of scatter brushes. So new brush group, and I'm going to put in scatter brushes. So if I want to organize, I'll cap the first letter just to keep it organized. Scatter brushes, and click OK. There's scatter brushes. I'm going to go grab any of these things that look like a scatter brush. There's one there. And scattering is basically being able to take the brush and scatter it as you spray it down. Now watch the tutorials on brushes. All that still applies. This looks like it's a scattered maple leaves. I'm going to drag it down into the scattered brushes. Now I've got two files inside of there. And if I come up and take a look at something else that may look like a little bit of scattering, I would say probably something like this brush here, and drag it on inside. Okay. All right. So you can make your own folders. This is beautiful. This is the new 2018 Photoshop 2018 to organize everything in a much more effective way. So you no longer have to just rely on all your brushes just sitting out in the open here. You can make hair brushes like this. These here may be nice for hair brushes. You can create a folder for that, put all your hair brushes in there. You can do a folder for freckle brushes, another folder for grunge brushes, and really keep things organized. Okay, and that's a real nice feature. This is a long time coming. We've all been complaining and begging Adobe to give us this feature, and it's finally here. All right, so if I go to the gear symbol, again, I still have my preset manager if I wanted to export any of these things. So I can select any of these brushes. So if I select, actually let's go to preset manager. Let's go to open that up first. Go to preset manager, and the preset manager is going to reflect all of the brushes and all of the custom folders that I created for these brushes, or custom groups, I believe is what they're going to be called. All right, and you can export these out. Okay, I can individually select with a control click to do multiple selections, and then save that set. Okay, so definitely watch the video on exporting your brushes. It's still applicable even for this. Okay, so I just want to use this particular video as an update. Hopefully this is helpful. Organize your brushes effectively so that you're no longer disorganized, and have fun with them.